when you're uke for your partner, it's it's a special relationship. But that you're uke for the teacher, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Which
That's
is, by the way,
thing.
a huge honor. It is a massive honor.
Yeah,
and it's us in the school and in the martial art world, not the sport world, but the martial art world, I think could really understand how big of a role that is and how big of an honor that is.
Yeah, it's like I don't, there aren't actually words for it, when you're that person, because the teacher is trusting another person to express the more important values to the whole entire class.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's very valuable.
Mm-hmm. I was, right before my career started, I was teaching at the schools, and it's that role of uke as a teacher. When you have someone that you can rely on, I think from the teaching perspective, it takes a whole lot of stress off of how you're going to maneuver the class.
This is exactly what I'm saying. It's like blessing upon blessing upon, but like you're giving at such a high level. And it brings us to our next topic, I think that's one of the reasons why you're such a great practitioner. And, I've noticed that your level has really continued to go up and up and up, right? And
Thank you.
And I just I want to kind of delve into that, how do you navigate being a good training partner and not an uke, but in the live training, right? And then what's important to you there, and how do you kind of balance working with your partner in the randori portion or the live training portion and your own progress and their progress? How is that? What are your thoughts about that?
So, this is great. Brandon and I actually spoke about this not too long ago.
Of course you
right?
did.
So, when I was midway blue belt going to purple belt, we had seen one of the students from the dojo and on somewhere in Bay Ridge, and they cracked a little joke on me, right? And about in regards to my training, right?
Uh-huh.
And I went home and I wrote down in my notebook, submit so-and-so person, right? And I was like, okay, when that happens, I'll feel like my training is where it has to be.
Uh-huh.
And
was this an upper belt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the day came where it happened, and it was not satisfying. It was not as satisfying as I imagined it was. Maybe it was a year prior when I wrote it down. It was not satisfying at all. It was actually almost a little embarrassing for me.
Wow.
And the reason I say that is because you can be successful at training and submit. You could do all of that stuff and be successful, but you want that training partner to come back and look forward to training with you again.
That's right.
And the intention behind it for this particular example, it was, I want to get mine. And that has never served me well. I think the only time that I've ever come back, finished up training with like a tweaked ankle or a tweaked knee was when I worked from that place.
Right.
And the things that are working for me now are just having a fun and high-spirited exchange with my training partner, whether that's a white belt, whether that's with you or one of the other higher belts in the school. It's just have a high-spirited exchange and begin the class wanting to work on something.
Right.
Whatever that technique is. Having a plan, going in there and seeing how that works with different people. Right now, I think I give a lot of credit to Billy Lou.
Yeah.
Billy, he helped me see jujitsu a little different, with like inverting and trying to get to the back in different ways, right? So through working with him, I feel like I was able to find a little bit of a nice place for me to explore when it comes to inversions, working from the back, and also at the same time keeping in mind all the principles that we go over.
Right.
Cover the hands from the back, right? Don't go for a submission unless you have your 3 points of control. Like all of those things, after like so many years of repetition, you know, they're actively in my mind round to round when we're doing randori.
When you say high-spirited, what does that mean? I love that term. I love the term spirit. It's a critical point in the martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
When you say high-spirited, what does that mean to you?
It's just we have to be there with our partner, and we have to bring the energy to an agreeable level.
Beautiful.
So with some of the more experienced black belts that are in the room, they could train at very high levels and pass the guard and handle a whole lot of different things, different grips, stripping grips from the feet, working on takedowns. And it's a sharp contrast to being aggressive. Being high spirited is like our mind is like present with this other person. It's not just, I'm gonna get you down, I'm gonna, snap your arm. It's not that.
Right.
It's, we're gonna work. And when you're in a tight spot, there's an understanding like you're in a tight spot. When I'm in a bad spot, when I'm in a tight spot, there's an understanding like, all right, now we continue working. It's
Right.
no like you stand up after you tap the black belt's arm, you tap your chest, and you're like, yeah, I won. Yeah, exactly. It's completely different. It's actually the opposite. It's like you just keep working because this person is they're going to show you a couple of things the next couple of moments that might transform the way you see jiu-jitsu for the next couple of months or years.
Beautiful, wonderful. What are some things like you're actively working on in terms of your training? Like what's important to you right now? I know we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. Like what's in your, like at your level, what's important to you?
Thursday's no-gi class, we went over the pass to the pin from the top, right?
Right. The diagonal pin.
The diagonal pin. So working that angle from the top, that's definitely been one of my focus points right now from the ground. And from the stand-up, it's working on, if I'm going to shoot, keep the crown of my head facing the ceiling, because once it goes down, something bad's gonna happen. There's gonna be a guillotine or just an arm around your sprawl. Yeah. So those two things are things I'm really working on. Mm-hmm. When we started reviewing the that diagonal line,
mm-hmm.
it really it made me realize like I've been doing side control probably very poorly or pinning from the top very poorly because I haven't really been paying attention. My partner would recover their guard with relative ease. And since we've been focusing on that diagonal line, whether that be placing your head there, placing your arm, elbow, shoulder, whatever it is, any part, any limb, any part of your body, just to prevent the recovery, I've been seeing a whole lot of success. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of there. It's still fairly new. It's in the lab a couple of weeks, but I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
So when you're in the lab and the experiment goes kaboom and it's not working, what do you tell yourself? I know we covered it earlier, but I think
there's still a part of me that's like, man, what are you doing, man? Like you suck. There's a part of me, like that voice is there. Don't get me wrong.
That's probably fueling your excellence, by the way, to some degree.
It very well could be.
Yeah.
But that voice is there. It's way more silent. I don't take it personal. But
how do you start the experiment? What do you tell yourself to get back on the horse?
If it happens again, it happens again. Like that's literally that kind of like I hate to say nonchalant, but I can't think of a better term right now, but like that nonchalant approach to those types of thoughts, they keep me moving forward. You know, it is what it is. What am I going to do? Am I going to throw a pout and say, I suck for the next foreseeable time that I'm able to train? God willing, it's forever. But just keep it pushing, right? That's why it's it is like being in a lab and experimenting, because sometimes things go great, sometimes they don't. But oftentimes, the great times, the great moments, the moments of success outweigh all of that time of struggle.
Certainly it does. My mentor tells me, like, you tend to forget how difficult it was. Like when you're on the other side, there's something happens in our consciousness that we tend to forget the extreme difficulty of it.
Mm-hmm.
When we're on the other side, we tend to focus on that victory or that new stage.
Right.
As a, I think that's very applicable for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. And needless to say, that stuff really is the work, right? Those moments of trial and error, especially those moments of error, that is the work. That is martial art. That is especially jiu-jitsu. Like, there's going to be many, many times where what we do just won't work in life in general.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to stop.
That's right.
It doesn't mean to stop. I think we would always when we would do our staff meetings, we would always say the most quits are at white belt.
That's right.
In the dojo.
That's correct.
And I'm sure that a lot of them leave because there is some level of that error phase where they're used to just saying, all right, it's time to go.
They've been trained to do that.
Yeah. But Shion, you're going on your 30th
in jiu-jitsu.
30th year in jiu-jitsu?
My 40th. I'm going on my 43rd year of martial arts.
And I'm sure you probably still feel a level of this, like, things aren't working for me right now in the training, right? There's got to be a level.
In so many ways, because I'm maturing and my body's changing, I have to relearn the technique. It's why I pull you aside before class to run the movements before I teach them, because my body isn't the same as it once was. Therefore, the technique, I kind of find it again. It's like relearning jiu-jitsu. So the level of frustration, the level of uncertainty and insecurity is still on high. And I have to use those principles. I am actively using the principles that we're teaching to work through that next phase and stage of the practice.
So if I could ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you were a 25-year-old practitioner, what did you see the next
jiu-jitsu or
30 years
or karate?
In your... Had you started jiu-jitsu
when I was 25?
So, or just martial art, your martial art practice in general, where did you see it in your maturing phase, being a 25-year-old? Like, were you able to see that far down the line? Were you able to realize, like, that day is going to come someday, being where we're at now?
There are two very important conversations that I had. One was with Mr. Miyazaki when I was about 18 or 19, and I asked Sensei, because I was hyper concerned that I wanted martial arts to be my life. And I was hyper concerned that it would leave me in some way.
Mm.
Like that it was a fleeting moment in my life. I wanted to be where I'm at now, then. And I said to him, Sensei, who are the people that stay in the martial arts? And then how do I become a real martial artist? And he said, typically, and this may sound antithetical to what I teach, but this was his perspective. He said, people who compete and come out of competition tend to stay the longest. I don't find that, but that was his perspective. And it was working. It was directly related to me because I was, you know, I was captain of the U.S. karate team, 6-time national champion on the world teams, traveled the world, blah, 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 blah. So it definitely fit my narrative. And he said, if you want to be a real martial artist, and I quote, go practice with Mr. Sheena, go practice judo. And I did that. And so I was trying to fortify my position in terms of getting to where I'm at now. And then I remember having a conversation with Professor Danaher, and we were sitting off the side of the mat. Sorry, PJ. And I said, you know, John, how long do you think we'll be able to do it for? And he said, competitively, like meaning spiritedly, you know, he said, probably till 60. You know, Danaher's close to that now. And I'm approaching, soon I'm going to be on the other side of 50. So I'm going to be heading in that direction. And I remember thinking like, oh shit, man, that's soon. Like, that's not a lot of time. And we had that conversation. We were in our late 30s or very early, late 30s. We were in our late 30s. And I remember thinking like, nah, I'm going to do more than that. And he's actually doing more than that now. Like, and I feel as though, I like during that conversation, I made the decision like, no, I'm going to stretch it further than that. I'm going to go further than that. I don't know if it directly answers your questions, but those were
hit it on the head.
Two like hallmark moments for me where I was like seeing out into my future.
It's hard to really put into context, like being in my 20s, like wanting to do this art for the rest of my life. There really aren't many, I would say, practitioners in different, not just martial arts, but in sports in general, that continue to do what they do well into their 60s, 70s, 80s, or, you know, till the day comes.
Yeah.
And that's
I'll
why
probably pass on the mat.
And that's so inspiring.
It would be my honor to do so.
That's so inspiring to hear.
You know, I was thinking about this earlier. It's not my place to ask it, but I'm gonna come at it this way. You know, I was very, very fortunate when I was 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, to have Mr. Vizio and Mr. Miyazaki, who were in their 40s and approaching their 50s. There was a huge gap. I was very fortunate to have those teachers to show me the way. Like, I watched these mature men mature even more into their practice. And, you know, may rest in peace, Mr. Miyazaki was practicing well into, I mean, he had Parkinson's, right? So, you know, up until he couldn't do it anymore, he was doing it. And Mr. Vizio is actively doing it now. He doesn't talk about his age, man. I think he's 1 billion years old. Like, he probably landed here from another planet. He calls us all Earthlings. He's a fucking alien. I love him to death. Excuse me for being inappropriate and disrespectful, but like, he can still whip my ass, PJ.
I remember the first time, I think it was a Monday evening class, right? Monday evenings, it was like off the mat, on time.
He was outside weeding to come in and train an hour before class started.
What an inspirational person. I just like talk about someone who could really command the room. You know, he's
He's
really
5'3", 135 pounds, by the way. He's not a massive, you know.
not at all. And
he's not Sasquatch like me.
Yeah, completely different. You know, but I remember him stepping onto the mat. He had a tracksuit on, kicked the sandals off, all out, set the mat.
Yeah.
And puts the pads on, and he just starts shadow boxing a little bit, just getting loose. And I was like, oh my goodness,
He's in his 80s.
This is gonna be crazy.
He's in his 80s, pal.
Wow.
And like, you know, you're a descendant of him. You're actually a disciple of him. He likes that term. You know, I think it's a fuzzy term for our culture, but you certainly are, you know, and like, it's why I bring it up. Like, you have a roadmap. I don't think that the new people understand what I'm trying to do when I'm training on the mat every day with everybody. None of my peers do that. None of them. You know, they have specific training partners. That's it. You know, and if they train in front of the students, it's really none of my peers. I'm not trying to tout. What I'm trying to do is give the students who care to know, like, oh, I can do this when I'm at that age and stage, and hopefully they'll be better than me. You know, I want that. I'm not the best practitioner in the world, but I certainly love it.
I think you are.
Oh, thank you. I love it. You know, I want to go into this next topic here. And I heard you say that the martial arts is really kind of, maybe you didn't say it exactly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the martial arts kind of influenced and informed how you are as a person in the world, like as a man, and how you relate to people, how you operate in your relationships, how you operate at work. And, you know, you're a New York City police officer. And I think that that's probably one of the toughest things to be right now. And I just want to I want to stay clear of like the cop stuff, but how does being like a martial artist help you at that work? Or, you know, because you're really in combat situations. You're like, you know, there's firearms involved. There's, you know, mental illness involved. I mean, there's an array of different things. And so how does your practice help you at work? Or what are some things, some principles that you use in high stress situations that have been helpful?
You know, I started to smirk a little bit because in the academy,
you're on video, pal, so they're going to see
it. They would call me Acuna son. They'd call me Acuna son because they knew I trained, right?
Yeah.
But it in my career, in those stressful situations, stepping into things that you don't know necessarily, the true dangers of what could possibly unfold. The martial arts keeps me rooted and keeps me focused. And I think like it really is. It's a very deep question. Just being able to have the confidence, one, that like if things really go south, being able to defend myself physically, yeah, that helps a whole lot.
How does that help?
More than anything, like God willing, there's never a moment where I have to use lethal force, right? But being able to settle things verbally first, right? That verbal judo that people talk about, that obviously is the biggest skill. But if push comes to shove and it's time to go hands-on, it is better for the person that you're trying to apprehend for you to grab them, put their arms behind their back, and cuff them up, then punch them in the face,
right?
Kick them, gouge their eyes out. You know, like,
right.
It's
you
more
can control
humane.
The level of violence. It is more humane.
Exactly.
Very good.
And being able to do that effectively, that helps a whole lot.
When you say effectively, I assume you mean that people who are not trained are doing things that are endangering other people's lives. Correct. Because they don't know what they're doing, correct?
Well,
maybe that's a fuzzy, maybe you don't have to answer that. But.
No, there's a level of that, right? Like, I don't think people realize, like, when you punch someone in the face, like, that could do substantial damage to the person who's receiving it, but also to yourself, right?
Yes.
But it's just not effective. It's just not efficient. They're not using, if we're not practicing some sort of technique or some sort of way to get someone apprehended, a lot of us police officers are using a whole lot of energy, and we're
it's
honestly,
counterproductive.
We're honestly doing ourselves more harm than good.
Right.
You know, because now you have your fellow officer who's out of the fight because they're winded or they have a broken hand.
So back to this kind of verbal judo, and maybe this is obvious, but I want to articulate it because I think it's interesting. When you're talking about the verbal judo phase, how much confidence does the physical jujitsu give you in that phase? Like, are you able to be more like patient, compassionate,
Absolutely.
less fearful because you have this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and being in the dojo, we're always humbled in one way or another, right? The structure itself humbles a character that wants to be like super, super alpha, right? It's very demanding. So having that kind of like skill on like kind of like ingrained helps those interactions a whole lot, because as much as I may want to like really just show like I'm the one who's in control of the situation, you could do that same thing without saying that. Being compassionate. We spoke about being an uke, right?
Right.
Every person that you encounter in the street is just a person, and they want to be spoken to like a person.
Beautiful.
So being sensitive to that moment, sometimes it means like, listen, buddy, I'm here, I'm in control of this car stop. Sometimes it means that. But other times, and most times, it's like, how's it going, man? Where are you coming from? Simple conversation. Listen, you know, your license isn't good. Step out of the car. You got to come back with us. We'll clean it up. Don't worry. Like, being a human being with it is most important. And then on top of that, if things go sour, you know,
you have some skill.
We have the tools. You know, I have the tools that I could use there too. One of the best compliments that someone could give you in this field is like, if they call for help and they want you there, that's like a huge honor, huge compliment.
It's like your teacher using you as the UK.
Exactly. And you know, I know that there are a number of people that I work with that if they were to come help me, I'm like, oh, thank God this person's here.
Right.
But then there are also a few who really have that, like, that it's almost like...
It's fear-based, man.
Yeah, and it really is. They have like this thing where they always make a situation worse.
Wow.
You know, or they always put themselves in a spot where now we have to protect them instead of dealing with the situation on hand.
Right.
And you're like, man, I hope this person doesn't come when I need help.
It's complex.
And every police officer could attest to, like, there are people that they work with that if they needed help, they're like, they're like second string. They're first string people I would really want, you know?
Let me ask you another question. And thank you, by the way. Thank you for that. I'm so happy that you have the skill set and the tools in order for you to do your job better, effectively, be more humane. It makes me so proud.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you.
I really have to thank you and all of my training partners. You know, it's really the work that we all do together that helps me out there, at home, in my relationships with my significant other. Like, it helps everywhere.
If you can sum it up, and we'll finish with this, like, if you can sum it up, and this may be a hard question, but like, what does being a martial artist mean to you? Like a martial artist, right? You know, like someone who lives by principle. What is it?
You know, the biggest thing that pops to me is living a life that's happy, and the thing that brings that happiness is discipline. And being a martial artist, when faced with stress and confrontation, like, go up to that shit, like face it head on, and whatever happens, if you get knocked down on your feet in the hypothetical situation, get back up. Doesn't really matter. Tomorrow the sun's going to shine regardless. Might as well get back on your feet and give another go.
Beautiful. Thank you, PJ. Nice work.
Thank you,
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you for listening to the Gentle Art Podcast. Please share, rate, and review. And if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out, please contact us at thegentleartpodcast@gmail.com or contact us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or thegentleartpodcast.com.